After the chaos that was Talladega, and that completely shaped the championship into what it is today, we head now to the final road course race of the season, which means we return to Denver Motorsports Park for race number 25 of the season, race 5 of the playoffs, and we head now to, like we said, Denver Motorsports Park, but this time it's on the road course layout, 18 turns, 3.7 miles long, and 20 laps that could define a championship charge in 2024. And alongside me to bring you all the action once again is James Ellison, as per usual, for this race. It's great to have you with us. Talladega was a bit of a strange affair in that we didn't have any accidents in that race. So, what that means is, we've got a fairly close championship fight heading to Denver, but a lot can change over the next 20 laps.
Oh, absolutely. Road courses certainly have their own unique twists and turns to them, pun partially intended, that as we have seen over the course of this season. And you're right about how Talladega certainly made things interesting. As a participant in that field myself, it was a good race overall, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this would be. Although, of course, I was attempting this race, but at least I get to see how it goes from the booth as usual.
And with a strong field of 42 cars set to take the green flag here today, there's a lot of action set to unfold over the next 20 laps here at Denver. As we can now bring you the starting lineup for today's 20 laps of racing action. Jeffery Finguy back where he needs to be at the front of the field. He takes his fourth pole of 2024 with Miles Mashburn alongside him. Christian Vargas behind in third, and these two I don't think are Finguy's main concerns at the moment. Yes, they're in the playoffs, but they're deeper in the points hole compared to his actual challengers, Lane Sanders starting 20th and Devin Fair starting in 30th. They've got a lot of ground to make up in the next 20 laps, but if anyone can do it, I expect them to be up for the challenge, wouldn't you say?
Oh, I would definitely have to say they will be up for the challenge, because this is definitely a competitive playoff field, especially for the championship. Of course, it's been a competitive fight for the points lead all year long, even before the playoffs. So it's really hard to say who could come out on top here. We've got some favorites, but it's really going to be left all up to. At the moment, I feel like if things play out right, even with just today, we may still not be too certain on who has the best shot.
So with that being said, we're about to find out how the championship will set to unfold here today. It's Finguy and Mashburn on the front row. The green flag's getting ready to drop on the field of 42, who are on the grid and ready to go. This is the 1UP Superstar Series playoffs from Denver Motorsports Park road course configuration, and we are ready to bring you the action as soon as the flag drops. Making their way out of the final chicane complex, it is Jeffery Finguy and Miles Mashburn on the front row. Who will grace victory lane today? We're about to find out. The green flag is in the air, and for 20 laps, the 1UP Superstar Series is green at Denver Motorsports Park. And a few guys back there are already trying to fan out 3 wide heading into the oval section of turns 1 and 2 before they inevitably brake really hard for the entrance to the infield section in turn 3.
Yeah, get all the positions you can here, because you don't know what to. Well, some drivers know what to expect. Some of these other drivers, well, they think they know what to expect, even with previous experience, but sometimes you just don't know with tracks like this.
Looks like everybody makes it through the first few corners cleanly, which is good as opposed to a couple years ago when it all went wrong at turn 3. But now Jeffery Finguy has a comfortable lead heading through the right-hander of turn 6, a long sweeping corner that these guys are going to have to deal with all race long, as it looks like everybody at the back of the field is still keeping it straight as we head downhill for the chicane.
Yeah, and that's good to see that the entire field is still doing good through this section of the course, because you don't want to have an incident on the first lap, because as we've seen in the past, you already mentioned a couple years ago here, but I can't help but think about Montreal. I believe it was last year that had a calamity on the first lap. You really don't want to start your race off that way.
I also remember Montreal of 2022. That was a rough first lap, as it should have been. But back onto the oval they go for turns 14 and 15. Emma Kruger trying to get to the inside of Ben McDonald. This is the fight over what I believe to be 8th place at the moment. But back at the front of the field, Jeffery Finguy still holds a pretty comfortable lead as they head into the front stretch chicane with that really tall curb that you really don't want to get onto if you can help it.
Yeah, you get on that, you're in trouble, that's for sure. And, of course, one person who's not in trouble, along with many others following shortly behind, is a man who is on a mission to get that championship and has been a little bit frustrated these last couple weeks with the way things have gone for him, even if he didn't have a terrible finish. Finguy leading the first lap, which is definitely going to go a long way for him.
And it's going to give him a bonus point, and that's really going to be helpful for the rest of his campaign, because any points he can gain on Fair and Sanders are going to be invaluable to him at this stage of the race. But Vargas is not too far off the 92 as they head into the infield section. Through turn 5 they go. Long, flat out that corner is for these cars before hitting on the brakes hard for turn 6. And you can take different lines through here. Vargas taking the inside, Finguy on the outside, but we're looking now for Devin Fair. There he is. He is still right at the back of the field in about 30th position where he started the day.
Yeah, that is a real tough go here, and you see Roberto Crown Jr., Echo Ross, they're right there as well. And this is going to be a tough fight for Fair, especially if he wants to defend this championship, but I'm sure he'll figure out something in the long run.
He entered today with a pretty sizable lead over Lane Sanders, but with Finguy leading the race, that's going to be a bit of a concern for him if he can't slice his way through traffic, because Sanders is just up ahead the road. There he is in the 87, he's made his way into the top 20, just ahead of Zachary DeLello and Nick Ortiz, who battle for position behind him.
Yeah, that's gonna really mess things up for Fair if he can't do something, because we know that 51 is strong, and speaking of strong, looking at Fair's teammate here, Christian Vargas, trying to gain something here on Finguy.
And remember, these two are the all-time wins leaders in 1UP Superstar competition. Finguy with 15 wins, Vargas with 13. They have won a lot of races between them, and one of them, I'm sure, well, they both really want to win this race here today, but only one of them can, if they can, because there's still some very hungry competitors right behind in the form of Miles Mashburn and Mark Davey especially. That 97 has been out on the rocks a bit lately, and now he dives to the inside of the 72, looking for third position. Looks as though he's going to try and hang it around the outside of turn 5 here, as Mashburn looks like he's going to defend the position pretty well, as Finguy goes wide through turn 6. That's going to open the door for the 54 of Vargas.
And that is not what Finguy needs. Granted, he's already got the point for leading a lap, but when you get in the lead of a race, you want to be able to keep that lead and dominate and get that point for most laps led. Which still some time to do that. Still very early on, but this is gonna just drive Finguy harder to try to get back up there, I think.
Yeah, so the thing is for Finguy, he's just lost 5 points with that one pass on that by the 54, and I think that's what Vargas has been trying to do from the very beginning. Deny Finguy those points to help his teammate Devin Fair get his second championship in a row, like Vargas did in 2021 and 2022, as they head back onto the oval section, turns 14 and 15, accelerating hard before braking hard for the front stretch chicane. This is where a lot of time can be made up right here, and Finguy hard on the brakes, trying to catch up to the 54. He's right on the back bumper, but nothing doing at this occasion. Vargas should be able to lead the third lap.
Yeah, and you talked about Vargas going back to back and trying to help Fair go back to back. That would be 4 straight for Revolution Racing, and that is something that this field does not want to see, especially guys like Finguy, like Sanders, and others, or even Mashburn right there. Nobody wants to see Revolution continue what could be considered a stranglehold on championships.
Except for, of course, the men and women who work at Revolution Racing to make these Toyota Camrys as fast as they possibly can be. But now, back onto the infield section we go, and Finguy's now under pressure a little bit from the 72 of Mashburn. This is the opposite of what he was expecting from this race. He knows that it's difficult to pass on the road courses, but Vargas found a way to make it happen, and now he's trying to equal that feat to try and get back past him. We still got a long way to go in this race, but like I said, very difficult to pass on the road courses, so Finguy's got to seize every opportunity here.
Every opportunity, and you never know. There might be something that'll happen that'll give him a chance, like what he did. Maybe Vargas will go wide here, and that'll give him a shot. But Vargas is real good. All these drivers are real good at these courses usually. So I would expect that if there's a mistake, it's going to be forced on them.
Now back onto the oval again. These guys are not wanting to give up any speed in this race, and they know they have to make a pit stop somewhere in this race as well. So that's going to be a premium as well. Whose crew can get the job done better than the others to try and cement themselves a place in victory lane. Down into the chicane they go. Those curves ridiculously tall, and they're doing their best to weave their way between them as they make their way back onto the front straightaway to complete the lap. Vargas is starting to eke out a lead on the 92 of Finguy, and meanwhile Devin Fair still struggling at the back in 29.
Yeah, that's no bueno, because you see Rasha Mahendra out there right there with him. Normally you don't see Fair and Mahendra right there by each other, except at places like Daytona, Talladega, or if Mahendra happens to have a pit strategy going on that puts him up in there with the leaders. But again, I say it. You mentioned pit stops. Fair could have an opportunity to make something happen there.
I do want to give a shout out while we're focused on these cars to make mention of these two guys racing each other for about 25th place. Cameron Brennan in that orange number 80 car, making his 1UP Superstar Series debut for Sanders Performance Autosport. Of course, he had that big crash at Memphis in a Nitro race a week ago, but he said he was fine, he's ready to race, and on his natural talent, the road courses, this is a stronger field than he expects in the Nitro National Series, but he is putting on a fantastic drive, as we said, in the top 25. And right behind him is a name we haven't heard since Auto Club at the start of the season, Justin Henley, trying to get back into the sport. He's got a deal for next season. He wants to get back into the swing of things, so he's got a one-off ride in that 96 car this week, and he is taking off with it. He started 22nd and is running right behind Brennan at the moment in about 25th place as they run. We're back at the front of the field. Vargas continues to lead.
Yeah, you're bringing up Henley. It's nice to see him back. His departure from Crossroads Racing and from the sport for the time he was gone was abrupt, but he needed that time, no doubt, and it's good to see him back, and good to see that he found an opportunity, even if right now that opportunity includes just a one-off in that 96, but I'm sure he'll make the most of it as we continue to watch Finguy and Vargas up front.
And the gap continues to stay consistently at about half a second at the line, but I expect that to fluctuate a little bit as the race progresses. As I do notice that further back in the top 10, Patrick Smith did get past his teammate Dylan Young to move up into the top 5. Both these guys are in the playoff hunt, of course, but I would not expect these guys to show any team orders in regards to each other, but if they get up into the fight for the lead here, they may be asked to help their boss a little bit to try and get that long-awaited championship.
And like I said already, Finguy wants that championship bad, and I think right now he is the leader of those who do not want to see the Revolution Racing stranglehold on title victories continue. But in order to get there, he has to have strong runs. Of course, strong run going on right now, but there's one position that he was in at the beginning of this race that he'd love to get back to, and that 54 currently occupies it.
And for Christian Vargas, of course, is no slouch in this sport. A two-time champion, a 13 race winner, it has to be said. So he's not going to lay over and let the 92 go, especially considering that his teammate and his protege is currently leading the championship. And at this point, as they run right now, the gap between Finguy and Fair would be completely obliterated. And it's hard to say at the moment, but as they run right now, I think Devin would still hold the lead, but it'd be very slim.
Yeah, and something that they gotta be mindful of, and I'm sure they are, is the fact that they can't be too focused on each other here, because we mentioned it already. Lane Sanders is in the mix right at this time going into this race. So if these two, if if Fair and Finguy get to focusing on each other, who knows? That could lead to, depending on how things break out, we could be looking at Lane Sanders stealing this from them if they're not careful.
A very valid point, it has to be said. We've got a lot of people still interested in this championship hunt. Looking a little further back now, Julio Cesar holds on to the final spot in the top 10. He's actually the highest placed of the Sanders Performance Auto Sport cars at the moment in that 10th position. He's being hounded for it by Zayden Davidson in the 4, as we got a battle now for 7th on our hands between Ben McDonald and J.D. Martin, both of whom also chasing the championship.
Yeah, they are chasing the championship, and they're also chasing the 2 Finguy Saitomi cars ahead of them. They got to try not to focus too much on each other if they want to get by them and continue their fight.
But this race has actually been flying by, it has to be said. We're almost at half race distance already, and I would start to think that these guys are starting to plan out their pit strategy. They know that if they can make it to lap 11, they can make it to the end of the race without another pit stop. So they might try and eke it out a little bit, try and get to a lap 11 or 12, then make their pit stop and cruise the rest of the way. However, it has to be said, strategy is vital at the road courses. It always is the case here. And you just never know what's going to unfold, especially as the race progresses. But one thing I can say for certain is that the top 4 are really starting to pull away from those behind.
Yeah, not only that, but as of the completion of lap 6, the gap from Vargas to Caesar through the top 10 is over 5.5 seconds, and I'd imagine that's growing. That's going to grow by the time Caesar crosses the line again here. We'll find out shortly, but the gap between Finguy and Vargas right now certainly hasn't changed too much, at least on the front stretch.
It's gone down by about 0.3 of a second, so Finguy is on the charge here, it has to be said, and the gap between 1st and 10th is still at about 5.5 seconds. So you normally expect field spread on the road courses, but this is actually more of a closer race than I perhaps was expecting, especially among these top 4. 4 teams, 4 manufacturers, all chasing a win at Denver, and they're currently chasing Christian Vargas, who has led since lap 3.
Yeah, two of these drivers have won races this year. 2 of them are looking for their first win of the season, and well, I would definitely say one who could be the hungriest right now out of that quartet has got to be this guy right here. We're looking at him, got to focus on the cameras, and that would be Mark Davey, because we've seen all the different things that have been going on surrounding Louisville Motorsports and all that in the last couple of weeks, but with some announcements that have come out recently, I think he's happy to get some of that out there, and now he's just going to focus on what he needs to do. And I know one thing he's thinking he needs to do right now, get past these 3 and sneak up the show for them.
Because lest we forget, Mark Davey is an absolute boss on the road courses, it has to be said. In his Nitro National Series tenure, he won 3 road course races in a single season back in 2021. So he is no slouch at these either. We often forget that with the influx of road course talent that comes into this series. Mark Davey was the trendsetter in that regard, and he is still in contention for this race. He's on the tail end of this leading quartet, and as we come to complete lap number 8, Finguy takes a really tight line through the chicane, hoping that'll get him a good exit and help him set off after the 54.
Yeah, that's a really good deal for him, because sorry, second there. We got a lot. Still got a lot. Well, Davey's fallen off a little bit here. I've seen, but that should deter him, especially with pit stops coming up, because like I said, strategy. It's hard to say what we're gonna see here.
And considering as well, the braking zones really allow these 4 to tighten up once again before stretching out in the acceleration. These guys are just pushing each other to the absolute limit, it has to be said. And these 4, while not completely broken away from 5th and 6th, they're starting to stretch that gap out. It's about 2 seconds between Davey and Patrick Smith in 5th. So, well, here's something interesting. Vargas goes wide for turn 6, and that's going to allow Finguy to be right on his tailgate heading down into the infield chicane.
And I've also noticed that 9th and 10th have changed hands here. Julio Cesar has gotten by Emma Kruger. The gap has grown back up just a little bit between 1st and 10th, but Vargas continues to go wide here and there, which I don't expect him to.
Vargas he's a very good race car driver, especially in this series. He's won 2 championships. He's won 13 races. As we see Mark Davey dive to the inside of Mashburn in turn 12 and 13. Nothing doing on that occasion. Mashburn pulls away with a wider exit out of the corner. But turns 14 and 15, and especially turns 1 and 2, are just one big drafting battle. So that's going to be a factor in this race as well when all is said and done in this race, because you got to consider that despite these heavy braking zones in turn 3, turn 15, etc., these guys, the aerodynamics on these cars are going to play a big factor by the time this is all said and done here. Because at this rate, they're going to be right on each other by the end of this thing.
And that's what Vargas does not want, is for them to all be right on him, because you know what's going to happen. That's going to give him an opportunity to lose this thing, and he's been dominating pretty much since he took over from Finguy earlier on, but again, pit stops could change things, and I know one person who could really change things without pit stops, and is that 92 pretty much filling his mirror in that turn.
Yeah, but he did go a little wide through turn 4. We've expected that, because that's happened pretty much every year we've come here, so you got to keep that in mind as the race progresses. Getting tight in turn 4 is not a good thing, considering it leads to sweepers of turn 5 and 6 before right here braking hard for 7, 8, and 9.
And that's what you need to do sometimes. Well, sorry, got a little mixed up there, but you gotta make sure your brakes are working good on these road courses. That's important. And of course, the amount of laps in this race, so long as something strange doesn't happen, you should be fine. And so far, looking at the field, it seems like nobody's had any issues, which, that's always a good thing. But at the same time, there are some people who would love to see a little bit of attrition for those ahead of them in order to get an advantage.
Yeah, but so far, Jeffery Finguy is driving the kind of race he's needed to have for a while now. Just solid, consistent. He's led laps already. That's a bonus point. And he's currently nabbing 46 points in this race. That's a lot. But I think he wants the maximum possible of 52, 53 around there. Because who knows how many points will separate the champion from the runner-up at the end of the season. Because this is the end of this race marks the halfway point in the playoffs. So there's only 5 races left after this, and they're all on ovals, which are a lot less predictable. So at this point, these guys have got to be maximizing every single race day that comes their way, because we've just passed halfway in this race.
Yeah, you talk about oval races being unpredictable. Oh, amen to that. There have been quite a few races that you and I have called that we thought we were sure what was going to happen, and then all of a sudden, all it takes is a caution to flip things topsy-turvy.
And even some road course races have been like that. It's not just limited to the oval circuits here. But you notice through turn 3, the Finguy was right on the back of Vargas, and now he's getting to the inside through turn 6, exactly what Vargas pulled on him several laps ago. But I think the 54 is just barely going to hold on through the chicane. That was some great defensive driving from the 54.
And I just happened to notice looking at the top 10 as we were talking about this battle. Top 10 is now bookended by Revolution Racing drivers. We got the 4 up here in the mix now.
I think that's because Patrick Smith in that 22 has made an early pit stop in this race. He is committing himself now. He knows that he is going to be good the rest of the way. However, there's going to be some drivers that try some things strategically, and if they succeed in that could send them well down the finishing order.
And that is going to be something you don't want to see. We've seen it before, that people try strategy and think they know what they're going to be getting, but then all of a sudden not. As we
here
see
we go.
more
We got pit stops. We got pit stops. 4 to 2 leaders, Vargas and Finguy on pit road. The rest of them stay on the racetrack, and that's going to gift the lead to Miles Mashburn in the 72. He leads this race ahead of Davey, Young, Martin, McDonald. Looks like Daniel Bouchard also made a pit stop on the same lap as Patrick Smith, but it looks like Austin Runkle as well. He's going to pit with Finguy and Vargas, but I'm surprised more people didn't come in with them.
And you would think that maybe some people in the back might want to try something, but I don't know. Maybe there's something that the rest of the field is wanting to see about these two that we haven't figured out yet.
And critically, Vargas does stay ahead of Finguy on the pit stops. So if Finguy was hoping to jump the 54 in the pit lane, it didn't work. And here's quite possibly the longest pit exit in all of 1UP Racing right here, because it leads from turn 1 through turn 2. You got to stay on the flat of the racetrack all the way through the apex of turn 3. And coming out of that corner, right about here, that's where you finally can blend back in.
Yeah, that is agonizing. You don't want to blend back in too soon, and you see Patrick Smith right there. He might have played strategy well, but we're going to see as we see those who went ahead and pitted coming out who went with the top two. And now, time to see who really wants to try to push this.
Yeah, we expect everybody to need to make one pit stop in this race, but we didn't specify when that would come, so who knows? These guys might try and stretch it a little longer, see if they can do a splash and go with, say, a handful of laps to go. That's how they're going to make their pit stop. Who knows exactly? But what we do know is coming to the end of lap 12, Miles Mashburn holds the lead of this race over Mark Davey, and it looks as though none of them are coming in. So I think I'm correct in that regard. They're going to try and stay out as long as they possibly can, then pit at the end, have a faster pit stop by just taking a splash of fuel, then try and see what their fortunes lay.
Yeah, and you see all these drivers in the back here. Oh, I just saw the Cal Teskar Jr. coming in, but he's the only one. Nobody else went with him.
And critically as well, for the championship, Patrick Smith has just passed his teammate Jeffery Finguy on the leaderboard. Doesn't mean much now while they're still languishing at the back after their pit stops, but once they cycle back out to the front, if this is a battle for a podium place, that could be a huge set of points going into 22's way instead of the 92.
And that could end up being an interesting team meeting on Monday, but we'll just have to wait and see how this cycles out as, well, we got a battle for the current lead at the moment.
You got to keep in mind, Vargas is going to, once these guys pit, Vargas should be the leader of the race once again. But right now, the battle for the lead is between these two. The 97 of Mark Davey and the 72 of Miles Mashburn. Like you said earlier, neither of them have been to victory lane yet this season. But it wasn't for a lack of trying. Mark Davey came really close at Indianapolis, and as well as probably a few other races, that he could have, would have, should have gone to victory lane, but it hasn't yet materialized for him. And, well, at this point, his time with this team is coming to an end at the end of the year. He's going to form his own outfit in the Chevrolet camp next year, but Mark Davey still wants to prove that he still has what it takes, especially with a win here at his bread and butter circuits.
Yeah, now let's see if they come in, and they do not.
Yeah, I think they're playing the long game here. They're staying out probably as long as they possibly can. We might see a few cars trickle on the pit road here and there, like there's one right there, Nick Ortiz in the 91. He peels off the pit, but it looks like everybody else is going to stay out, including Devin Fair, and while he has moved up a couple of positions in the running order because of a few pit stops, if I were that 51 team, I would have probably pit with Vargas and Finguy just to try and jump a few cars.
Yeah, well, it seems like he wants to stick and see how the rest of the field plays out, because this is getting interesting, because we know that they can't make it all the way to the end, but it's just a matter of how long they wait and what strategy they pull.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it always plays out on these road courses, it has to be said. But Mashburn continues to lead the race. These laps are important for him because he's now possessing a bonus point for leading this lap. Or the last few laps, it has to be said. Now, Vargas has the point for the most laps led, as we see Nick Ortiz exiting the pit lane behind Daniel Bouchard. But, yeah, there's Vargas. He currently has the most laps led in this race. If Mashburn can hang on and lead probably maybe about 4 more laps, he might be able to take that point away from the 54.
which not only that's going to be huge for him because right at this point, but also that's not only is it going to deny the 54, but it's going to pretty much double deny the 92 because Vargas was doing everything he could to ensure that he got the point instead of Finguy, and now there's a risk of Ashburn getting it instead.
Yeah, and considering these guys have just stayed out another lap, I think Finguy's hopes of getting the most laps led point have gone away for good now. But yeah, these guys are all staying out there, and they're staying out for a long while. Look at Cameron Brennan. For his first time in a superstar car, he's proving he's no slouch because he just passed a 7-time winner in this series in Jake McMillan. So that 80 car is quite fast despite being mired in the midfield.
Yeah, I like to joke a little bit about how he came into the scene and started doing really well right away compared to my tenure in Nitro National, but I gotta give him props. He's doing a really good job and doing everything right, as long as bad luck doesn't strike him.
Yeah, and he's committed to a full Nitro National season next year. First time he's going to be able to race the full season, and I would expect him to race for probably a really good points position with as many road courses on that schedule as there are. But down the hill they go, Mashburn and Davey. They've led the race for about the last 5 laps or so, and I don't know how much longer they're going to plan on staying out here at this point, because we're getting to the point now, we're coming to 5 laps to go next time they cross the line. You got to worry at some point, because if you wait to pit too late, then you won't have any time to make your way back up through the field again. And
that's definitely not going to be a good situation, because when you run so long in a run and you try to stretch it as far as you can, you run the risk of running yourself out before you can get back to pit road, and that is definitely not something that either of these two want, or anyone else behind them right now, wants to see happen.
And considering that this track is 3.7 miles long, one of the longest on the schedule, but second only to Road 1 International, I believe, these guys, if they're playing with fire here, because if they run out of fuel, say, on the entrance, yeah, there's McMillan, he's peeling off the pit now, but if these guys run out, say, entering the infield chicane, I don't think they're going to make it back to the pits.
Yeah, there's no way, because that is probably that has got to be one of the furthest points from pit road you can be, no matter which direction they're racing. So you really can't run that risk. And I would, if I were the crew chiefs of especially the current top 4, top 10, actually top 10 even, I'd be getting ready to get on the radio, key in to come in.
We have 5 laps to go in this race. Miles Mashburn has led since lap 11 of this race. Mark Davies been hounding him this whole time. So, at this point, the fuel's marginal. They're trying to eke out as long as they can to try and save as much time when they do come into the pits as they possibly can. But, like I said, these two have been pushing each other pretty hard for the entire race at this point. So, yeah, it's going to be tricky, but who knows where they're going to end up at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's the real mystery right now, especially with whatever their strategy is currently a big unknown, the big question mark. You don't as a fan, you got to be curious, but at the same time you got to be less and less interested and more worried, especially when you're a fan of someone like Mashburn or Davey, who's trying their hardest to see how far they can take it.
Let's see what happens here. They're going for another lap. At this point, I think they're trying to just save as much fuel as they can, because who knows what's going to happen by the end of this race. Because there's Sam Donato. He pits now. He's given up on this strategy. But you see Mahendra run really wide through the chicane, and Echo Evans Ross run even wider as a show of respect. But we now have 4 laps of racing to go. Finguy still stuck behind Patrick Smith. Vargas ahead of them both, but it's Miles Mashburn who continues to lead the way. Look at Mark Davey though. That was a lunge and a half into turn 3.
Yeah, it was quite the lunge, and I think he's trying to see if he can
run
maybe
him
get
out of fuel
ahead,
and run the 72 out of fuel, maybe.
run him out of fuel, and get a chance to get ahead of him whenever they do pit, because that could be an advantage. Because we saw Vargas able to stay ahead of Finguy. I'm thinking Davies' crew chief might have seen that and thought, in addition to the idea of trying to run Mashburn out of fuel, maybe see if he can't get ahead of the 72 and see if that strategy that worked for Vargas could work again for him.
Well, we're making our way to the end of this race. We're braking now for turn 10, and this is still a long way from the pit lane. So if they run out now, it would be really close, I think. Because keep in mind, there's another heavy braking zone at turn 12 to turn 13, which Davey might try and make a move into the corner. Don't think it's going to work. So I think now, if these guys can get enough momentum through the oval section and then run out of fuel, they should be okay to make it back to the pit lane. But I really think they should be coming into the pits any lap now.
That'd be the smart thing to do, because I'd say give it another lap or two, they'll be on fumes, and fumes don't always get you to the pits. That's something we've seen before.
Yeah, they're coming in now. They couldn't have afforded to stay out much longer in this race, and they're bringing everybody with them. So this is the mass exodus onto the pit lane, and this doesn't surprise me to see everybody coming in. They knew they were going to try and stretch this as long as they could, and actually, Rasha Mahendra is going to hang this out a little longer. Why not?
That is bold.
He's not in the championship hunt, though, so what does he have to lose? And his teammate's going to try the same thing.
Yeah, that's... At this point, like I said, they're not in the championship fight. Why not go for broke and see if they can't stink up the show for the entire playoff field here?
So J.D. Martin officially led that lap because he crossed the pit line in the pit lane. But next time they cross the line, it will probably be Rasha Mahendra leading this race. But looking now at Mashburn, he's exiting the pits. There's Vargas on the banking. I think the 54 is going to clear the 72, especially considering the wider line Vargas can take into turn 3. But I think, well, Finguy and Smith, they've cleared everybody except Mashburn. And I think Mashburn's actually going to stay ahead of those two. So net gain for Miles Mashburn there.
And it looks like a net gain for one or two others who've been in the top 10 all race long. Because I'm pretty sure I saw Julio Cesar might have gained a few spots on others ahead. And well, of course, we have to wait on these two teammates here to cycle out of the lead if they even do. Which, honestly, at this point, if you don't pit coming to 2 to go, you're going to be really playing with your chances here.
I mean, but honestly, they really don't have anything to lose. They're deep in the points. They started deep in the field in this race. They weren't going to win this race any other way. Why not try something? And if it pays off, eternal glory. If it doesn't pay off, it's just another one of those days and you can move on. So I commend this call by the Motor Racing guys to leave their cars out, see what happens, because we're coming to 2 laps to go and they've got quite a handy lead.
And if they manage to make the fuel stretch, then good for them. But if they don't, well, they give it an effort, like we both have talked about and are pretty much becoming a broken record about. You got to try something. Try something to see if maybe you can steal one from these elites here. And
speaking of elites, we got an elite battle on our hands for a net second place once the Moto Dash cars run out of fuel. Because look at this, Mashburn, Smith, and Finguy, they're all over each other for what is currently 4th place, but will become 2nd eventually.
Yeah, and the way things are cycling out, of course you got Mahendra in the lead. You got
Liam Nolan in the 53 in 2nd. That's 2 of their cars in the top 2.
Yeah, and then of course Vargas currently the one closest to them, and no doubt will be the first one to get by them once they run out. And then there's this
Hornet's Nest as well.
And got to hope that they've got this settled out by the time they get to the Motor Dash cars, because those 2 run out, there's a good possibility they'll be in the way of this fight.
You know what's just occurred to me though? I don't know if those Moto Dash cars are gonna run out, because put it this way, they started 28th and 38th today. They've run in the back all day, and as such have run slower lap times. Slower lap times mean less fuel burn, so I think they're in a really good position to stretch this out here, as Lane Sanders has yet to leave pit road after his pit stop, and we're hearing a mechanical failure is putting an end to the 87's day just a few laps from home.
And that's going to be a blow to his championship hopes right there.
Oh, no doubt.
That's painful to look at. And, you know, I like to joke with Lane off camera and off track, but about him and his team and all. And we go back and forth making jabs at each other, but I got to commend him for the season he's put together. He and Julio Cesar, the whole Spa organization in both Superstar and Nitro National, what they've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, but meanwhile, Rajah Mahendra's about to take the white flag in this race, and now he's committed himself. He is going for this race win. Liam Nolan is going for a Motor-1-2. Vargas is closing the gap at a rapid rate, but I don't think he's going to get there if these guys hang on to it.
He might get to the 53, but he's definitely not getting to the 42 unless he sputters.
But even if they don't, even if they do run out of fuel, you got to commend the team on their strategy today. They were nowhere in this race up until the mass flood on the pit road. So for these guys to be running 1-2, considering the season they've had up to this point, this is a phenomenal run. And consider this: Mahendra finished second at Talladega last time out.
And this will just put him one spot better the way things are looking in. Again, pain for the 87 and Sanders, but what a call by the Motor Dash teams, especially for these two right here. This will be a day that'll be long remembered, because I think that at this point, even if they were to sputter going into back onto the oval, they could at least still have a good solid finish out of this.
But I think Rajah Mahendra, he's had enough of solid finishes. You got to remember back to that Nitro National race at Las Vegas a few years ago. He had that race won until mechanical failures ended his day. But he's never given up on the Motor Dash Racing team that gave him his chance in one-up competition. And with Liam Nolan trying to fend off Christian Vargas with all his might, I think they're going to bring it home here. So coming through turn 14 and 15, Mahendra only has that one chicane to navigate before he can coax his way home to eternal glory. Like I said, he brakes hard for the chicane, through 16, through 17. He's going to make it, he's going to survive, and for the first time in one-up racing, Motor Dash Racing get their first win in one-up competition, and so does Rajah Mahendra, an unbelievable fuel economy run that sees the Motor Dash team ends their heartache and bring home a 1-2 in the Superstar Series.
I definitely, like I said, I gotta commend the crews, the crew chiefs. What a brave, bold call, taking advantage of the fact that they had a lot of fuel conservation in the back of the pack, and they played it perfectly.
Absolutely, this is a monumental day for them. They have had their ups and downs in the Nitro National Series, and then they moved up to Superstar, where it's been a nightmare for most of their tenure. But this is going to be a day they're always going to remember at the Denver Road Course. And Christian Vargas drove a great race, has to be said, just got bit by the strategy of the Motor Dash teammates. He comes home third. Patrick Smith, fourth place. He did not let his teammate back past in the 92 of Finguy. So with Finguy finishing fifth and Devin Fair finishing down in 30th where he started the day, that's going to shorten the gap to 11 points as we head to Chicagoland.
Yeah, and you know that's got to give Finguy hope, despite the fact that his teammate didn't let him back by. But you know, I think the fact that Sanders had the mechanical failure that made him the only retiree of this event, which is super unfortunate, as I talked about with the season he's had, but Finguy is going to be real happy to see that he still has a chance to hang on and maybe, just maybe, steal this one and finally break the Revolution stronghold on championships.
But I think we
get
can
his first.
Yeah, but I think we can set aside the championship for a moment and just take in the monumental occasion that is Motor Dash Racing here today. They drove a flawless race. They were playing the long game. They knew it was going to be tight on fuel, but I think now they're starting to run to sputter a bit. Yeah, there's Mahendra on the apron. He's out. Nolan's sputtering. But who cares? They're race winners in the 1-Up Superstar Series. And not only race winners, they brought home a 1-2 finish. Nothing after this can deny them that.
Oh, yeah, that's... at this point, you don't care about loss of fuel. And... Alrighty, then.
That's one way to celebrate, I guess. He might have been so absorbed in his first career win that he missed the pit entry a tiny bit, but like I said, who cares? They're 1-Up Superstar winners now. Nothing can take that away from them now, and they're heading to Chicagoland with all the momentum in the world.
And then, that's going to be a good race to watch. I know that for a fact, and all my attempts in the Superstar Series are done for the season, so I'm looking forward to getting back at it with you for the rest of the season here in the booth. And I am really excited to see as more interesting, fun stuff.
Absolutely.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, well,
I'm really looking forward to how this will shape up and who will be crowning champion at Homestead.
Absolutely. So, from James Ellison and from myself as well, we say goodbye from Denver Motorsports Park. A historic day for Motor Dash Racing. They started at the back. Nothing was going right, but they played the field to perfection, and they are winners now in 1-Up competition. Not just winners, but in a 1-2 result. Rasha Mahendra puts the curse of Las Vegas behind him. He is a winner, and with Liam Nolan right behind him in second, a historic day for the Motor Dash Racing team.